Russia's new T-80 tanks are just Cold War junk with glitter. Another day, another Russian tank rollout that looks like it was pulled out of a museum, spray-painted, and shoved onto the battlefield with duct tape and dreams. On June 2nd, Russia's armor overlords finally rolled out another batch of upgraded T-80 BVM tanks to the front lines of Ukraine. Poof! Just like that. They've apparently fixed all the weaknesses of Cold War steel, because nothing says battlefield genius like resurrecting a decades-old design. Again, these modernized monsters, replete with advanced protection systems, are allegedly tweaked from real-world combat notes pulled directly from Ukrainian anti-tank missile encounters, loitering munitions, nuisances, and FPV drone buzzkills. Altogether, the Kremlin boasts over 200 tech tweaks since 2022. But are these tanks really upgraded? Hey friends, Wes here, Army and Air Force vet, law school grad, and full-time observer of Kremlin cosplay. And today we're talking about Russia's glorious upgrade of the T-80 BVM tank. Again, if you're new here, I cover military tech, the war in Ukraine, and international defense trends through a very specific lens. Sarcasm, skepticism, and more than a few hard-earned observations from my time in uniform. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Okay, Russia's oldest armor factory just fired off another batch of these so-called modernized main battle tanks to the front. And if you think that means they've fixed their problems with drones, javelins, and the laws of physics, well, buckle up. Let's break down what this tank actually is, why Russia is clinging to it like a security blanket, and whether it's anything more than Cold War cosplay with ERA bricks. So why are we even seeing more T-80s in the wild? Well, let's go back to June 2nd. Uralvagonzavod, Russia's favorite tank forge, and probably the worst place to work if you value structural integrity, announced that a new batch of upgraded T-80 BVMs had been deployed. Their claim? These tanks incorporate over 200 updates based on direct combat experience in Ukraine. All that means is they got wrecked by javelins, loitering munitions, and FPV drones, and they're trying to build a version that doesn't blow up 5 minutes after reaching the front line. But here's the thing. These aren't new tanks. They're old Soviet designs with a facelift. We're talking 1970s engineering giving us slightly shinier shell and repackaged as cutting-edge war machines. The T-80 BVM was already rebranded in 2017. They did it again in 2020, and now they're doing it again in 2025. It's like re-releasing the same bad movie every few years with deleted scenes and pretending it's original content. And yet, even as they push these things out, the numbers tell a different story. Here's your mandatory math check. Ukrainian sources and multiple Western analysts currently estimate that Russia has lost over 4,000 tanks since the conflict began. That's an entire generation of armor turned into smoldering scrap metal. Poland's foreign minister called it 20 years of production down the drain. And since January 2024 alone, nearly 1,900 tanks and 1,150 other armored vehicles gone. Russia's production lines are cranking, sure, but they're not keeping up. At best, they can spit out 40 to 130 tanks a month. Compare that to their loss rate, and you realize they're basically bailing water out of a sinking ship with a shot glass. Now, let's look at what's actually in this upgraded T-80 BVM. Protection systems, essentially armor. Russia claims the T-80 BVM now features advanced protection systems to improve crew survivability. But unless they've magically invented modular armor kits or fielded Western-style active protection systems like Israel's Trophy or even their own long-defunct Drozd's, it's probably just more welded plate and bricks of Contact's ERA slapped onto old hulls. Is it flashy? Well, maybe. Is it proven to stop modern anti-tank guided missiles or top attack loitering munitions in real battlefield conditions? Well, let's just say the jury's not only out, they've probably joined the crew running from the tank after it caught on fire. So what about firepower and fire controls? Well, yes, upgrades to optics, stabilization systems, and thermal imagers are claimed, and we'll give them partial credit. Better sights make a difference in marginal environments, but here's the problem. Firepower only matters if you see the enemy before they spot you. And in an era of drone eyes and laser-targeted death from above, a slight bump in electro-optics won't matter when a $300 FPV drone is racing towards your turret. There's probably a larger conversation to be had here about tanks' relevance in a drone war, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Okay, so what about mobility and engine work? Well, engineers say the tank now boasts an upgraded powertrain to handle the additional weight from all the new armor. Sounds good in a press release, but we've seen what happens when you slap 23 tons of ERA tiles on a Cold War-era chassis. The drivetrain throws in the towel. The BVM might lurch forward a little faster on paper, but it's still hauling around the 1980s engine that wasn't built to carry a bunker on its back. Okay, what about digital command and control? Well, finally the Russians say they modernized battlefield networking. In theory, this means integrated comms, data sharing between vehicles, and real-time tactical updates. A long overdue step into the 21st century. But here's the uncomfortable truth. None of that matters if tank crews keep ditching their vehicles at the first sound of buzzing overhead. High-tech comms don't mean much when morale is low and the hatch is open. Oh, and a quadcopter is knocking. It's like upgrading your email server while the building is on fire. Besides, this is one area where Ukraine is light years ahead of Russia, especially now that Link 16 is slowly coming online in Ukraine. So, what's the strategic play here? Well, in short, there isn't one. Russia's defense industry is stuck in a time loop. Instead of innovating, they're iterating. Slightly better versions of old tanks pushed out to plug massive battlefield losses. They're fighting a war of attrition with a shrinking supply chain, fewer qualified crews, and a growing gap between production and demand. Russia's entire strategy is still based on attrition. Throw more steel until you break the other side, except Ukraine isn't breakable. Tank by tank, drone strike by drone strike, Ukrainian defense is increasingly surgical. Now, where are my armor veterans down in the comments? Because you guys are going to get mad at me for a second. But tanks don't win wars anymore. Tanks on the wrong side of ISR and precision munitions lose them. Prove me wrong in the comments and I'll buy you a beer, or maybe a malt liquor to you up quicker. Whatever you want. Now, here's a deeper issue, and I don't see enough people talking about. Russia is trying to fight a 21st century war with a 20th century doctrine. They still think tanks win battles through brute force and numbers, but Ukraine has flipped the script. Precision weapons continue to punch above their weight. These tanks, no matter how modernized, are still funneled into predictable routes. Bridges, forest clearings, and narrow choke points makes them easy pickings for smart ATGM operators, with a line of sight and a little bit of patience. Then there's Ukraine's unmatched drone intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance web. Recon, quads, and FPV drones don't just find tanks, they stalk them by spotting armored units before they hit the line. Ukraine's drone operators give ground units the luxury of time. Time to emplace artillery, time to aim the ATGMs, time to decide who lives and who doesn't. Strafing runs with modified FPVs can soften columns before they even know they've been seen. Meanwhile, NATO and the US are taking notes because, in case you missed it, there's no modern doctrine for tank warfare under drone saturation. Ukraine is writing that doctrine right now in real time with off-the-shelf tech and a lot of determination. This is why I believe Ukrainian veterans will be teaching classes at West Point when this war is over. So, are tanks obsolete? Not quite. But they're no longer the kings of the battlefield. They're pawns. Expensive, slow-moving pawns that can still do damage, but only when deployed with serious tactical foresight and some serious counter-drone support. Russia, unfortunately for them, seems to think it's still 1985. Russia's revamp of the T-80, call it the BVM, the BVM-2, the IFV Ultra, whatever the you want to call it, is more cosmetic than revolutionary. War isn't fought in brochures. It's fought in the air, from drones, and by precision weapons on the ground. Better tanks don't matter if you shoot the tanks before they move. Ukraine, on the other hand, is wielding the future. Drones, ATGMs, and loitering munitions. Meanwhile, Russia circles back to how can we up-armor an old tank better? Well, that question died in 1945, Tovarij. Welcome to 21st century combat. Russia's still stuck in the Soviet basement, while Ukraine rewrites the playbook with every engagement. That's it for today, friends. Subscribing, liking, or commenting is the best way to support me and keep this channel healthy, because when you do that, it sends a signal to YouTube to push this video farther out into the Miltech tube. Miltech tube, is that a thing? No. And as always, my friends, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea will always be Ukraine.